Good evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you may be listening to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Onward to Victory podcast, episode 24 of season 3, because we're still talking the off season, Palmer. It's been about a month, I think, since we've done an episode, Palmer. We're just after the 4th of July holiday here, July 6th. We're inching ever closer to switching over to season 4 counting. We'll probably do that when we hit late August and we start seeing team projections and practices really kind of start to kick in again here. But a couple of things to discuss about Palmer, including probably what has suddenly become, I think, in my opinion, the most interesting topic of the offseason in George Mason using their 15th scholarship here.
Yeah, I mean, uh, they brought in James Nnaji, which is a little surprising. Former NBA draft pick, played for FC Barcelona for a while, or not FC Barcelona, Barcelona, uh, for a while. Uh, Played at Baylor last year. A big dude, and normally the 15 scholarship spot is a guy where it's like in 3 years he could be a player, and this is a guy where it's like this guy might be a player this year.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Obviously, there's the controversies that come with Najee. He was kind of the first one to do the international pro to college basketball player. There was questions about eligibility last year. The NCAA has gotten rid of those questions, at least for now. In regards to that, obviously was able to play at Baylor last year under the requirements as a freshman. So he would, with his signing, he would have 3 years left of eligibility, including this one, as a Patriot, as long as that stays firm. But either way, here, Palmer, maybe if there's a couple of things here, I think specifically, right? The big one to me is that we are talking about a player who only played in Big 12 conference play last year, did not go through an offseason with the team, but was still a guy who only averaged 1.9 points per game last year in Big 12 play. Obviously, that's not breaking anything in the world here. We've seen players like that from P5s come down and succeed, and we've also seen players from P5s average something like that and come down and continue just to kind of go down the lane here in terms of where they're playing college basketball.
Yeah, uh, these centers exist, as you said. These centers exist. I feel like every team has one at all points. Uh, the Ojiakos, you know, uh, and I mean, usually what happens is they don't play much of the Power Five, and they come down, and they're a fine backup center. Uh, I do think that, as you said, Najee showed up like during the winter break and pretty much played right away. Uh, so those numbers are he's been there for like 2 weeks and he's playing. Uh, he didn't get a full all season. Also, Baylor was awful. Like not just like ranking bad, but when you watch them, it's like, what's going on here? Uh, they had Tunde Yesufu, who aesthetically looks like Anthony Edwards, but is really bad at basketball. Uh, and uh, the team just kind of felt like they didn't know what they were doing, uh, which is weird for a Scott Drew team that Scott Drew won a national championship a couple years ago. Uh, I think a big plus is Mason's going to be organized. James Nnaji went into a system for 2 weeks that doesn't really work. So there's just so many things going against him there.
Yeah, and certainly also maybe a system that didn't suit his abilities. Baylor runs, they're slightly above average in terms of speed. This is a group that Scott Drew, they're not necessarily big on anything, but they like to limit three-pointers. That's what they do here. But they're slightly above average in three-pointers, slightly below average in attempts per game. Maybe just wasn't in the end, I think, not a great defensive team last year. I think a lot of the guards that you saw, Cameron Carr, you mentioned Yesufu, kind of an undersized point guard, I think, for the Big 12, and Isaac Williams only standing at 6'1". Not a whole lot of consistent three-point shooting from the wings, whether that's Yesufu or Dan Skillings. Some undersize as well. They're going Williams at 6'1", Obi Agbim at 6'3", Yesufu at 6'5", and or Cameron Carr at 6'5", and then Yesufu at 6'5". And you've got Caden Powell, who was the center last year, at 6'9". That's not a very big team. And I mean, Mason struggled with size themselves, especially on the wings in the A10. I can only imagine what that would be like, obviously, with more athletic players in Carr and Yesufu. But still, I have to imagine that brings along some issues. And I think Mason, I mentioned this, we're going to have an article about Nnaji in the coming days as well, our usual scouting report that we do for all the transfers. But I think as well, and I mentioned this in my article, I think slowing it down would help him out a lot. Mason likes to play at a slow pace, hopefully help him kind of unlock an offense development in the game. I think there's something there defensively that we saw at Baylor. I don't think there wasn't a whole lot offensively. This is not a finished project. He's not like he was some 25-year-old or 24-year-old European. This is a guy who came in at 21, maybe more resembling kind of like a swingy JUCO player, a projectable JUCO player, lots of athleticism. I think he's very quick for a 7-foot frame. I think that's something that once he hits the court at Mace, you're going to hear a lot for a person who's 7 foot. He's very quick. He's a fast 7-footer for sure. He didn't look uncomfortable guarding the perimeter in the tape I saw when Baylor played Houston. He didn't look uncomfortable doing it. I don't know if any 7-footer ever looks crazy comfortable or crazy good at guarding the perimeter unless you're a top 5 draft pick in the National Basketball Association. I'm not so sure anyone does, but he looked, I think, as comfortable as he's going to look. I think there's a player here. Obviously, there's some controversy with it being him, but I think the fact that he is coming down a level, he's showing a willingness to come down a level, come to George Mason, where he is certainly not a guaranteed starter, where I don't know if he's going to be making a ton of money. I certainly think he's not within, at the very minimum, I think the top 5-6 players on George Mason this year in terms of dollars being spent on. It's just that type of thing, Palmer. That's just kind of my thought and opinion on it. He's coming here to play basketball. He wants to get better. Steve Curran's a great big man coach. We know this for well. We've seen a lot of big men come and be successful here at George Mason. I think not even just before, kind of just the last 5 years since the Paulson turnaround. You go from Paulson firing, you go for Duro under Kim English, Amari Kelly year 1 under Tony Skinn. Jalen Haynes, obviously, first team All-A tenor, and probably the runner-up for Conference Player of the Year that year in 24-25. Riley Allensbach turns himself around from a 12-minute a game player with Samford into a second-team All-A10 big. This is a staff that's had a lot of success with big men. And obviously, I think the hope is that projectively wise, with the athletic talents that Nnaji has, that this staff can do it again.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Skinn, I really bet that he was just pointing at Amari Kelly, Haynes, and Alan Sparks, like, hey, look what I did with it. Look what me and Steve Curran did with this guys. I mean, Nnaji, as you said, he is really fast for 7-footer. Baylor, I don't think they should have done this, but they kept switching him onto Mikel Brown Jr. and Ryan Conwell. Mikel Brown was the 6th pick, and Conwell was like 33, or 37. So these are real guards, and he switched onto them, and it wasn't really a problem. I've seen 4 possessions where he got switched on, and he blocked him up 3 of the 4. The 4th, Baylor. It seemed like Baylor has no clue who's switching and who's not. I noticed it not just when I was watching him, but like the rest of the team is like, oh, they don't know whether they're who's switching or staying, and so there's just so much going on there. But I mean, he stayed in front of guys that are going to play minutes in the NBA, especially Mikel Brown Jr., which is crazy. Yeah, I mean, I did look back at his Barcelona stats because that's the largest sample size we have. The shooting's not going to happen. he's a career 48.8% free throw shooter. Uh, and I say it's not gonna happen unless something crazy has to happen for that to happen. Uh, but he is career 70% 2 point shooter. Now, of course, at Baylor he had a 10% usage rate, which I've never seen one that low. Uh, like 15% is considered really really low, and this guy was at 10%. Uh, there's no there's a little bit of movement kind of stuff, but I wouldn't expect anything on ball from him. Uh, just kind of get the ball under the rim and put it in. Sit in the dunker spot. I did notice that he gets a lot of attention if he rolls. It feels like everybody around him just runs at him because they're really afraid of what happens. But yeah, it's a big dude, moves really fast. Uh, I I would really be shocked if offensively he's more than a play finisher. Uh, but he's never played at a level this low, and Curran could do something with him. I mean, Conga showed big improvement on offense from the start to end. To start, he was definitely just a play finisher. At the end, he was kind of giving some short roll passes that were like, "Man, this guy to force this game," So there's a wide range, and it's most likely just play finishing, but that's all you need. As long as he can consistently finish, then makes 70% of his twos. Totally fine with that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put that there, Palmer. It'll be interesting to see what his role is. Obviously, we'll see as the story develops. This will be a key part of, I think, the offseason discussions here. Where does he fit? How does he fit? And that, like I said, I think that'll be a big part of the remaining offseason here, Palmer. He will be a discussion here. He is kind of now, I think unfairly, but he is kind of now the X factor. Or at least he'll be labeled that right now for this Patriots team, particularly with what he could bring, I think, depth-wise is critical to the front court. I think, that, Mike Marcus, can play the five. Emmett Adair can play the five. Elijah Jones can play the five. Emmanuel Congo, we know, is a five. But, a lot of 4-5 hybrids there in terms of Jones, Adair, and Marcus. Nnaji would be a true five. And it's just nice to have another one of those on the roster, Palmer. We always like to see that. But in terms of other news here, Palmer, I think for Mason Nation they know about, maybe they didn't hear about, we're going to focus on the coaching staff there now. A little bit of turnover there. We've already talked about the former strength coach has left. Mark Bilikowski has left. He's left for what we believe is a promotion at Campbell from his current role right now. But in other words, from his coaching staff, two other promotions. Two new titles for Lewis Hinnant and Andy Fox, both getting associate head coach titles now to go along with Steve Curran, likely to help with the pay bump and to take care of the staff, it seems here, Palmer.
Yeah, I don't know how much that will help for future jobs, but I'm gonna bet it does give him more money. I still assume that the staff is like in order. It's Curran, Hinnant, Fox. But I mean, it's nice to see, like, they didn't have to do that. They could have stayed at their. It's not the same degree, but it kind of reminds me of how Tony Bennett at UVA would give his raises to, instead of getting raises, he would just give to his staff to get a better coaching staff. So it's nice to just see a little bit of money thrown, to take care of these guys. Tony Skin's done an amazing job at getting these assistants. Curran is viewed as one of the top assistants in the conference, and Hinnant is always on those like top 50 lists, which is awesome. And then Fox has been everywhere, and it seems like he's done a great job so far.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I think this is the critical point here, Palmer. I think it's talking about investment in the program, Palmer. We've continued to see an improvement in that from George Mason over the last 2 seasons, I feel like. Though, this offseason more than anyone, though, Palmer. I feel like this is the offseason where I think we've truly seen that come why. I think in terms of the targets we got and acquired in the portal this year, obviously I think in terms of the coaching staff, a new extension for Tony Skinn that came in to add another year to his deal and another raise here. I want to point out too, Palmer, also raised that buyout up a little bit as well, which you always like to see. I believe it's up to 1.5 million now, which that's a whole new head coach, Palmer. That's a whole new head coach now. Maybe I think it's a little under 1.5 actually, but still, it's enough for what would be a whole new head coach if Tony Skinn does leave us for another place. That's Mason protecting themselves, and that's Mason protecting their interest and spending on their interest. And we've always said that the old Mason, I think, is finally starting to disappear. I think Palmer, where I don't think they recognized what the basketball program brings to the institution, what it does, I think, in terms of not just viability in the area, but I think viability nationally. And I think Mason now has recognized that. I think I have to give credit to Gregory Washington on that. I have to give credit to Marvin Lewis since he's come in. I think has done a very good job as AD, and he's had his contract extended for that purpose as well. These are good things. These are good things that are happening here, Palmer, in terms of what's going on here for the program. I think on both ends, I'm talking men and women, just continued investment. And that's all we want to see. That's all we've been asking for as a fan base, is continuing to see that investment. We're doing it. That's exciting to see. And it should be applauded. We should, when we don't think it's happening well enough, the fan base should speak up. When it happens, we need to applaud the people who do it. And that's, leadership of Tony Skinn. And that's on Gregory Washington and Marvin Lewis for proving that. I think that's critical.
Yeah. With old Mason, it would have been really easy to just say, oh, he'll just stay. He'll just stay because we're Mason and he likes Mason. But this is kind of protecting himself, like, no, if he does leave, which is very possible, interviewed for Maryland last offseason, and Florida State, it's very possible. And you don't want it to happen, but it probably will someday. And as you said, okay, well, if he leaves, we have the money for our next coach, which is big. Because it would really stink if he left, and it's like, man, we have no money. We gotta get like a guy that we don't really have confidence in, but we'll take the amount of money we're given. So that's good. Always good to see. The investment has been a lot better than what it was a couple years ago. Because, yes, as we pointed out, it used to be a little mismanaged, and now it seems very well run.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And then one more piece of information for the night, Palmer. One more change on the coaching staff. New strength and conditioning coach, Casey Cathrall, has been added starting in this June here. He and Tony Skinn were colleagues when Skinn was still an assistant coach at Louisiana Tech from 2015 to 2017. And this is also an interconference take here, Palmer. Cathrall worked at Dayton for the last 7 seasons. Now he's George Mason's strength and conditioning coach. I don't care what any Dayton fan does about him, Palmer. The narrative is clear. We stole someone from Dayton's coaching staff, Palmer, and in my opinion, that should always be celebrated.
Yeah, when he first got there, it lines up with Obi Toppin's breakout year. So take that as you will. Yeah, he as you pointed out, he was with Skinn at Louisiana Tech. He was also with Larinaga, which is, I bet you there's a little like, hey, this guy was good from him. And I was trying to find, like, are there any super success stories with like strength and conditioning? And then I realized, like, in this day and age, like, so few people stay 2 years that it's kind of tough to find. I was hoping that I would check on Latong gain like 25 pounds between freshman and sophomore year, but he didn't. So hopefully this can kind of just be if Skinn's worked with him before and Larinaga's worked with him before, you're getting something good. He knows he's not there's no fog of war here. He knows who this guy is. And obviously likes him to some degree.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Palmer. Some additions to the coaching staff. We'll see if the Billikowski spot gets filled. There were rumors on social media about Jesse Pruitt from Cal Poly potentially filling that spot, but those rumors came through about a month ago now. So I think we're in the process of, what is that real here? What's going on? Is that still happening? We will update with you as that comes. But for now, Palmer, that's kind of where we're at. That's where we're at. Summer practices still going on. I believe they're resuming now with the 4th of July holiday behind us. But, still more to come. This team is building. This team is growing. And I'm very excited for what the 26-27 season holds, Palmer. We're getting ever closer here. Like I said at the beginning, Palmer, we're getting ever closer to ending season 3 and headed to season 4 here. We're getting close. We're getting real close. Like I said, that switchover probably will happen in late August. That's kind of when like the Torvik and the Ken Palm projections really start to settle and come out. That's usually a good time to say that the season has changed over. Because at that point, Palmer, in late August, really we're only 2 months away from the season starting. If you can believe it, it's kind of coming up on us here, Palmer. We're less than 4 months away here we're less than 5 months, 4 months, 4 months away in reality here. It's because usually the season starts that Monday before Election Day for George Mason, which would be November 2nd this year. We've got it July 6th. So basically under 4 months at this point, Palmer. Isn't that that's fun? I'm excited. Are you excited?
Yeah, that's kind of close. Hopefully we're going to be seeing some kind of media coverage somewhat soon. Rothstein like show up.
It's starting to be that time of year. It is starting to be that time of year. The Loyola Chicago fans are going to probably wish that Rothstein doesn't mention them again this year, because last year he mentioned them and said that Mason was not going to be as good as Loyola Chicago, and then everything went wrong. So, John, if you cannot say that they're not going to be as good as us, we don't want you to say that. Don't say that, please.
Yeah,
we're okay. We're just rank us where you rank us.
He has some hits and misses.
He does have his hits and misses. It's all right, John. I doubt he's listening to this, but you're cool in our books, John. You're cool in our books. All right, that's what we're going to end on here today, folks. Thank you, as always, for listening here to the Onward to Victory podcast. We are your one place for all things George Mason basketball. I'm Joe Szymanski. He's my friend Palmer Johnson. We are Giant Killer. We are Onward to Victory. Season 26-27. It's closer than you think, folks. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.